When designing an app in Budibase, we have screens, and inside our screens, we put components. And a component is really what displays data on a screen or allows you to interact with your app. So I'm going to add a new screen. This time I'm going to go for a blank screen. Just going to give it the URL data. And you can see there Budibase has automatically added my data screen up into my navigation. If you want to keep that, you can. If we want to remove it, you can use this little X button or change the details of it, like so. And you can conditionally show and hide this navigation element as well. Or you can turn this into sublinks. So if you want this navigation to have children, you can do that as well. But I'm just going to leave that as is. You can see that says data nav at the moment. So I'm going to start by adding a text component, and this is one of the most basic components and most widely used. And with a text component, we can write text on the screen. And the text you write in here can support Markdown. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger first of all. And I'm going to click this little lightning bolt on the right hand side. And once again, we can type Markdown in here. And we can change the styling of some of this as well. So I can set the color of the text. And we can change this overall size. And by changing the size drop down here, that will change both the size of the header and the body. And we have lots of other styling options in here as well. So typically with Budibase components, you'll always have the ability to set a margin. And depending on the component, you may have some other options in here as well. But I'm going to move on to another component. The most flexible way to put data on the screen is to use a repeater block. Okay, and what a repeater block does is it will take a data source. So in this case, we've auto-selected tasks. And for every component you put inside your repeater block, this will repeat per row in the data source that you have selected. So for example, inside my repeater, I'll put a card. And what I'm going to do is, in the card, I'm going to fill out some details. So here's the title of the card. So you'll see there first that there are multiple cards displayed in this list. But what I want to do is, for the title of each card, I want to display the data from the row itself that has been retrieved. So the name of the repeater block is new repeater block. That's what is pulling in the data from the data source. So from there, I will choose one of the column names. So I will choose name. We can mix plain text with it with the templated fields here. Okay. Sometimes I like to use this little evaluation button that shows me the output, and you can see there that gives me an example output of what you might see. So I'll hit save there, and you can see there that for every single card we have name, colon, and then the name of the task. A very common thing to use in Budibase is conditions. And I'm going to set a condition on this text component. So up in the top right, once I've clicked on the component, I can choose conditions. Go in here, set a condition. What I'm going to do is I'm going to update a setting. I'm going to say I'd like to set the color to a nice yellow if the current device, so device.mobile, is true. Okay, so you can see it's still red, and if I switch to mobile, it goes yellow. And one important component to really understand is the container component. And the container component is what will help you lay your screen out in the right way. Okay, so I will add a container component. And container component, it contains other components. Okay, so it allows you to lay things out the way you need. So I'll just add a few components in here first. I'll add another text component. Let's add an options picker. Okay. So you can see whenever I drag each of these components, first of all, because they are inside the container, I always have to drag within the bounds of the container itself. Okay, but it does allow me to lay out these components in whichever way I like. On the right hand side, we see this option of layout. And by default, whenever you add a container component, it will be set to grid layout. And grid layout is what gives you this drag drop interface and allows you to place it anywhere within the container itself. But if I choose a flex layout, you'll see I'm no longer able to drag these components about. They are sort of auto positioned for me. So it is a little more difficult to use, but Flex component allows us to format the screen better for mobile devices. So just to give you a picture of some of the options here. So by default, this is set to column layout, which means the components are laid in column order. If I switch that to row, you'll see they are now laid out alongside each other. Now they're quite far apart there, so I can just set the alignment to left or middle or right, and then back to expanded. And then I can use these alignments as well to say where within the container itself the components are aligned. So aligned at the top, aligned at the bottom, aligned in the middle, and I can bring them back together there. So one very useful way of moving components around the screen is by dragging them through the tree. And what this will actually allow us to do is things like putting one component inside another. Okay, so I can put that repeater block inside my container. You can see there. And that's really the only way you can do that. Once it's inside the container, the only way to get it out again is to use that component tree. So sometimes you might need to find yourself needing to use that. So we covered some of the main components in Budibase. I showed you how to lay some items out on a screen using a container, and we had a look through the component tree and how to use that. There are many other components to use in Budibase, lots of form components and charts, but for now, we'll move on. So thank you for watching.